There comes a time for pretty much everyone when you just have to stop and question something you've always taken for granted. Today, we're going to look into a series of questions from a book called Flat Earth Uncovered, questions designed to challenge one of our most basic assumptions about the world we live on.
The whole idea behind this book starts with something really universal, this idea that at some point, every single one of us comes to this very moment.
It's like a pause in the middle of our everyday thinking.
And in that pause, a thought comes up. And it's one of those thoughts that just sticks. It doesn't go away.
It's the kind of question that seems so simple on the surface, but when you really think about it, you realize it carries some real weight. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, it's just this quiet, persistent question in the back of your mind. And a question like that, well, it has a job to do. Its whole purpose is to move you from just assuming something is true to actually being aware and thinking about it for yourself. And that moment, that feeling right there is exactly what Flat Earth Uncovered, 100 Questions That Challenge the Round Earth is all about. This entire book is built around exploring that moment of questioning.
What's really interesting is the approach here. This book doesn't start by giving you answers. It starts with questions, because the whole idea is that questions are what really open the door to seeing things in a new light.
So, if it's all about questions, what kind of different view are we even talking about? Let's dive into the first section and get a feel for the foundational ideas of the flat Earth model presented in this book. Okay, so at its very core, the idea being presented is that the Earth is not a spinning globe hurtling through space. Instead, it's described as a flat, circular object that's covered by a solid dome. In this view, the sun, the moon, and the stars are all moving in their own paths above us. Let's unpack that a little. The model is built on a few key components. First, a completely stationary and level plane. Second, it's surrounded by a massive ice wall, which is what we call Antarctica. Third, everything is enclosed by a dome, sometimes called the firmament. And finally, a really crucial point, the sun and moon are much, much smaller and closer than we usually think.
All right, so if the Earth isn't spinning, the first thing you're probably wondering is, well, what about day and night? How does that cycle even work in this model?
The explanation is pretty fascinating. The sun is said to act like a giant moving spotlight. It travels in a circle high above the flat Earth, and as it moves, it lights up different parts of the world below it. So you get these localized day and night cycles, not a single global sunrise and sunset. Now, a core argument in this book is that this model isn't about complex physics, but about things you can see with your own two eyes. So that brings us to the next big topic, claims from direct, everyday observation. The real question is, what do we actually see? And one of the first and biggest observations brought up has to do with the horizon. The question posed is very simple, but it makes you think, why does the horizon always look perfectly flat? So here you have two very different ways of looking at this. This book claims that the horizon doesn't just look flat, it always rises to meet your eye level, no matter how high up you go. The mainstream scientific view, of course, is that the Earth is just so massive that its curve is way too gradual for us to see from the ground or even from a plane. And you see a similar kind of comparison when it comes to large bodies of water. The argument presented here is that water, by its very nature, always finds its own level. It can't physically hold a curved shape on the outside of a sphere. The mainstream view, on the other hand, explains this with gravity, a force pulling all that water toward the Earth's center of mass, forcing it to follow the planet's spherical shape. So when you start with these simple observations, comparing what you can see with what you've been told, it naturally leads to a much bigger question. And that's what this next section is about, challenging the consensus and asking, why would there be a deception in the first place? And this is really where we get to the heart of it. Why is there a belief that major organizations like NASA and other space agencies would be lying to everyone? Well, this book lays out several reasons for this deep distrust. There's the belief that images and data from space are fabricated, that the moon landings were staged, that satellite footage is actually CGI. The book also points to things seen as anomalies in videos from the International Space Station, and often highlights the admission that famous images, like the blue marble, are composite creations put together with software. So when you put all of that together, it boils down to one central idea, that there's a belief that powerful governments, scientists, and institutions are all working together to hide the true shape of the Earth from the public. All of these points, from what we see with our eyes to the questions about authority, are all designed to build up to a single powerful moment of reflection. And this is what the book calls the first real question. And that question is this:
If you've never personally taken the time to examine what you believe about the Earth, how certain can you really be that it's true?
So if that's a question you find interesting and you want to explore the other 99 questions that this book poses, you can find it available now on Amazon. Just search for the title, Flat Earth Uncovered, 100 Questions That Challenge the Round Earth. It's written by Sue West.
Patterns reveal purpose. Purpose invites reflection, and reflection leads to clarity. This book helps you follow that path with confidence. Click the link to get your copy of Flat Earth Uncovered, 100 Questions That Challenge the Round Earth by Sue B. West.